Good day, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers. This is a new edition of our video dialogue, 4 questions to our expert. And the expert with me today, and I'm welcoming at our show, is Flavia Inzikuru. Flavia is based in Vienna. She is a lawyer and she has studied in Kampala, Uganda, her home country. She has studied in Vienna and also at the Open University in London. Flavia's role is head of the African desk at international law firm Lansky, Ganzger Partner, headquartered in Vienna, who have 100 lawyers under their company and employees from more than 20 countries. And through a cooperation with Andersen Tax and Legal in Cologne, they have also a comprehensive network covering 45 African markets. So Africa is the topic of our discussion today. We'd like to put the spotlight on Africa, what it has in store for investors, for business people, or for other people interested to do business and discover this vast continent. So, as the format prescribes, 4 questions to you, Flavia. Welcome to our show. I'm very pleased to have you here today. So,
thank you very much.
Great. If we look at Africa today, we are talking about a huge continent with a population of about 1.3 billion people, which will grow fast to about predicted 1.7 by 2030. It will be on top the fastest urbanizing region in the world, with incomes rising. From your experience and perspective, Flavia, which are the sectors where Africans have still unmet needs, thus creating opportunities for business?
Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm very, very much honored to be your guest today. I'll go straight to answer you, and I would say that if any sector in Africa could be needed development or needed very urgent attention, I would say almost all sectors. Yeah, because what is already established in one country is definitely not established in another. However, they are some focus sectors that, of course, need constant development depending on each country in Africa. So generally, I would say the urban sector, since the population of Africa is obviously growing faster, the housing sector is very important. If people move from cities to, from villages to cities, urban sector must definitely be developed. Housing sector. I would also mention education. For any economy to strive and develop, education is key. I would definitely also mention the infrastructure sector. This is very vital. Technology and digitalization sectors, agriculture, and lastly, health sectors. These sectors are very important in Africa, and they are, as Africa is one of the emerging markets, there are lots of opportunities, and these sectors offer promising opportunities for global investors and businesses. I can give you an example. African consumers and businesses today spend about $4 trillion US. Household alone, consumption is expected to grow I would say at an average of 3.8% a year to reach $2.1 trillion in 2025. And this is all fueled up by both the enormous population growth and the rise in incomes. In East Africa alone, I would say more than 6 million households are expected to enter the consumer class by 2025. Business spending is expected to grow, I would say, also from 2.6 trillion in 2025 to 3.5 trillion US dollars by 2030. I would also like to mention that in order for all these to be achieved, it's very essential to include the youth. As we all know that almost half of the population in Africa is the youth, are young people. And we also know that women have always been neglected in many aspects of society. So the indulgence of the youth and women entrepreneurs in capacity building and mentoring workshops will definitely help the continent develop greatly.
Okay, very impressive numbers, facts and figures. For those who have been to Africa, one of the observations which is recurrent is that poor infrastructure generally is one of the key impediments for investment and growth in Africa. In your opinion and in your observations, are private-public partnerships or concession system between European, other international investors and African states and communities successful models versus a model that we have seen for almost decades now, that's debt-funded investment by state-owned Chinese companies. China has had a strong footprint in Africa and continues to have so. So is this, let me say, more European, more Western model successful? And if so, can you perhaps share an example with us?
I would begin to, to answer this question by saying that Africa normally values a relationship, that consists of shared or compatible objectives. And for example, an acknowledged distribution of specific roles or responsibilities among participants. This can either be in a formal way, informal way, can be contractual, can be voluntarily between the parties, but most importantly, the implication of such partnerships and agreements or investments between European and African or Chinese funded investments are very vital if, for example, a cooperative investment of resources, joint risk sharing, authorities and benefits of all parties are taken into consideration. If these aspects are not considered in any agreements, any partnerships, any investments, Africa definitely finds it quite difficult in finding a fair and a transparent partner, either between their European or Chinese companies, who could definitely develop, for example, inter-organizational relationships, risk sharing, and benefit sharing among their parties involved. If these aspects are definitely not taken into consideration, it becomes very tough for Africa to decide either the European or the Chinese. For Africa, what matters is obviously a relationship that's benefiting both parties. An example I would mention could be the World Bank's private participation in infrastructure. The PPI has a database that records contractual agreements with or without investments, in which private parties assume operating risks in low and middle income countries in Africa. So this is an example of a database that covers entirely infrastructure projects.
Okay, good. Let's move from infrastructure to resources. Africa has always been known, or for a long time been known, for its resource abundance, both in agriculture and in mineral resources. If you take a look at the markets you're usually covering, which African countries or which African business groups have managed so far to build a competitive local manufacturing base to supply the domestic market as a kind of import substitution, and also to become regional market coverers, exporters, and pan-African companies?
This is a very, very, I would say, very interesting question, because obviously we know there are 55 African countries and they entirely differ in their ways of doing businesses. However, I would say that in the first half of 1960s, there were a few countries like Tanzania, Zambia, South Africa, and Nigeria that obviously began to implement their import substitution industry on a large scale. And after this, we had other countries that followed the same strategy. Among these countries, we could say Ghana, Damascus in the 1980s, who actually did a great job in Sub-Saharan Africa, and obviously encouraging other countries in the Sub-Saharan to follow the same strategies. To mention a few business groups, I do believe that the oil and gas, because obviously Africa is rich in resources, we all know this. Food is very vital. Food is and agriculture, of course. Electricity, we have so much electricity. Dams generating electricity, for example, in Uganda, that supplies Kenya and Tanzania. We have their telecommunications, and this has been growing rapidly in Africa. Real estate is one of the key sectors that actually provide a very competitive markets among Africa countries, because also, as we mentioned in the first question, because of their population boost in Africa.
Okay, so let's perhaps in closing move to the current and actual situation. As of January 1st, 2021, trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area has officially commenced. This is a bit difficult to describe agreement. So this AFCFTA, as the unspeakable abbreviation is called, is now being effective. If I'm correctly informed, it covers 54 out of the 55 African countries. This is a watershed development, I would say. And it has taken years of ambitious planning and negotiations to come to that stage. So let's look ahead. From an insider's opinion like yours, what could one expect that this AFCFTA, this African Continental Free Trade Agreement, will bring in benefits and results in the close foreseeable future, say the next 5 years? what would you expect are the effects and the benefits to the member countries?
Apart from their Africa continental free trade areas planning and negotiations, I foresee that in the next 5 years, on the topic of intra-Africa trade, the following main topics to be considered. If they are not considered, then definitely there is an issue with this entire agreement. So their public-private partnerships and the South-to-South decentralized cooperation in transformation of African economies and cities. This is taking place even before the agreement. So I believe that the agreement will definitely boost this in the next 5 years. I would say the co-production in the agriculture sector for the transformation of African economies is one aspect or one very important topic that I foresee that much emphasis should be placed on. Private sector's role from this global south in the transformation also of these economies plays a very key role. I would also think the co-financing investments in key sectors of African transformation and alternative financing for private sectors. This is obviously something that many African countries might consider quite new, but if emphasis are also placed on this in the next 5 years, we will see changes in Africa. Modernization of production through digitalization. I also do think coal production in the mining industry to boost the transformation of these economies in Africa, because as you mentioned before, that mining is resources are one of Africa's most markets that need to be exploited. Innovative strategies for promoting tourism. This is also one sector that Africa needs transformation in. And lastly, I would say strengthening entrepreneurship among young people and women. I always emphasize on young people because the youth are the workforce in Africa. If the youth and the women are definitely included in all these transformations in Africa, this will definitely make a big difference in the development of Africa, I would say. Most importantly, I would love to say something, Erwin, that every country, we shouldn't forget that every country in Africa has its own national development plan, which obviously refers, of course, to its priorities as well. Yeah? So their development indicators for each country shows particular countries in Africa that will definitely benefit from this, our Africa Continental Free Trade Area. But I also do think that countries in Africa that had already benefited before their Africa Continental Free Trade Area came into force will continue to benefit, because they knew they had connections, they had ways of how they operated, how they dealt with each other. And this agreement will not make any difference, but I would say it would actually improve their working relationships within Africa with each other, and also for African countries that had also already been working with international companies will definitely also continue to to boost their businesses. So this is not going to change. What I expect, what I see, what I foresee is more income into Africa and more developments taking place in the entire Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Flavia, for this comprehensive, positive, and indeed interesting insight from an expert. Exciting times ahead in Africa, wherever you look. And I'd like to thank you for sharing your insight with us. I was talking to Flavia Inzikuru, head of African desk at international law firm Lansky, Ganzger Partner here in Vienna. I'm Erwin Kretschner, senior partner at Pendel Piswanger Intersearch, Austria. For those of you who would want to know more about this interesting and complex subject, on our homepage, you will have contact details of Flavia and ourselves. And I invite everybody to engage in a dialogue with us and with Flavia on topics of interest in Africa, on the legal side, but beyond that, on business. Flavia, thank you very much for having you with us. I wish you success in your role in the African desk, and we'll keep in touch and exchange our views on this interesting subject. Thank you for today.
Thank you very much. The pleasure was all mine.